Now, it's easy to romanticize the sports world, roaring crowds, star athletes, highlight reel moments. But behind all that, the modern sports executive is juggling more than wins and losses, from appealing to millennial fans who'd rather stream at home to navigating rising costs, tech expectations, social media blowback, and athlete activism. There's no playbook for any of this, and add in unpredictable trends and the lingering financial fallout of COVID, and it's clear the real action isn't always on the field. So how does a professional sports team adapt, evolve, and lead in this environment? Well, joining me now to talk about the business of modern sports is Dwayne Vino, president of the BC Lions. Dwayne, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for coming in and doing this. I know we've been meaning to do this for a while, and I wanted to do this because there's so much of sports that is behind the scenes that's vitally important. We love our teams. We're engaged with everything that they do. We follow them, and we certainly don't want any of them to ever leave. But it is a real business behind the scenes, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about not just football, but just in sports generally. In regards to the modern sports executive, someone like yourself, what does that mean in 2025, and how has that role evolved?
That's a good question, Jazz. But at the end of the day, we want to, you talked about it off the top where, during the season, people will see the team in action and you'll see, follow us from the wins and the losses. And we have this, lengthy season. But, the real season from the business side is the off season. And, some call it the business season, some call it, whatever they might be. But I always like to allude it to that in the off seasons when we really affect change. And, if you're a golfer, I sometimes often talk about if you're a golfer, if you're going to win on Sunday, what happens on golf on Saturdays is that's the moving day. And in that moving day is when you're getting into position to win the tournament on the Sunday. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what the off season is, I believe, in our sport and in most sports is getting ready, setting yourself up, doing all the right things in the off season to then implement them in the season to then be very successful. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
is it down to like, we're going to have on game one, this is going to be the theme. Game two, this is the theme. And if it is, and I don't know if it's that, but is it a question of you actually going through all the details of something like that?
Absolutely, we do. Yeah. So we try to, and that's one of the things, when Amar Doman, our owner, bought the team in 2021, one of the first statements he made was that he wants every single game. We only have 10 games. It's not like it's like baseball, and we have, lots of games throughout the season. We have 10 games. So he said, I want to make every game an event. And I really subscribe to that strategy as well. And, we try to create something for everyone that they want to be there. And if you're not there, you're feeling a little bit like I should be there and have a little bit of FOMO, if you will. And what we do is we get our schedule and we look at it and say, okay, we have a few staples that we do, and we do them very well. Like last weekend's game, the Watermelon Smash, it's become a staple, and the concert opener has become a staple, and we have a few others. And we then look at where our schedule lands and say, okay, what fits within this timing? What's going on? What would make sense? And we really work to build our themes and try to have an event before the game even starts. And so we want people, win or lose, to come in and feel like they got good value, they were well entertained, and no matter what the score on the field was, they leave and go, you know what, I had a pretty good time, and that was worth my dollar.
How much of these decisions are based on the gut? And what I mean by that is, last year I was moderating a conversation with Billy Beane, and for our listeners, he's the former Oakland A's executive who looked at data, algorithms when they decided what players to draft, but it was really the use of numbers over guts from traditional baseball managers and that sort of thing. And I hear that often, that sports has become all about algorithms, much like society, I guess, and numbers. How much of your decisions today are based on numbers and algorithms and data compared to gut?
We use data a lot. We know if we've done something and we've put it out and we've made an offering. We know how successful it was. We know how many clicks we had. We track all of that information. But I would say there's a lot of data and there's a lot of data science around what we do, but there's also sometimes you just have to look at it and go, does that make sense? And the data doesn't always say, it doesn't always answer all the questions, right? But we are using data way more than we used to. We really try to, we talked a bit about this before, Jazz, where you used to in sports, just from marketing games, you used to be on traditional media all the time, and you weren't able to reach people on their personal devices, and now we can reach people on their personal devices. We can give them entertainment. We can really build our social platforms to the point where you're reaching people outside of the games, and we made a strong effort on that. Our social team is tremendous. Often people say they're at the top of their game, and it's a big part of our business to try to make sure that people are seeing. If they're not coming to the games, they're still able to follow us and understand what we're all about, and we use a lot of different platforms for that.
You do. Do you get involved on the football side of things, or are you strictly business? Because for me, when I hear your title, I go, he must have to juggle both to a certain degree.
Yeah. So our organizational structure is we have a bit of a unique one, but we have a general manager that's responsible for all the player personnel and all the coaching staff, et cetera. And we also have a vice president of football operations who works very closely with our general manager, but really a bit more on the business side of football. And so, but collectively, they manage our football team, our football operations, and report into me. And then I have a direct report into our owner, Amar Doman.
How do you watch a game when you're at BC Place? Do you sit there like a fan, or do you watch different facets, whether it be ticket sales, concessions, how fans are reacting to perhaps something that you've organized as an event? How do you watch a game when you're at BC Place?
So at BC Place, it sort of depends, but I try to make sure I've got a pulse on what's going on in the stadium and what our fans are experiencing first. It starts outside when we're doing something on Terry Fox Plaza. I'm out there just. I want to understand, is it working or not working? You can feel it, whatever that concept might be. And then when we get into the game, it's a bit of a mix because I'm watching our entertainment value to the fans, but I'm also paying very close attention, obviously, to what's happening on the field from the team perspective. And you mentioned Billy Beane. He never watched many baseball games. He couldn't watch, and sometimes I tend to walk around everywhere and I have a bit of a nervous feeling on home games, so I'm always moving around.
So you don't sit?
I never sit. I'm moving at all times.
During the game as well?
At all times. I'm always sort of moving around and talking to people, seeing what's going on. And
so, you're just not on the field, or are you just in the stands everywhere?
I go everywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I don't know what it is. It's just it's been a bit of a habit of mine, but I like to get around and just see what's going on. I don't want to be sitting in one place, but at the same time, when you're there's a lot riding on wins and losses, so it's just hard to sort of sit there and watch it when when you're inside of that environment. But when on the road, I tend to stay in one place and watch the game.
One of the things, Dwayne, I find very interesting as well. You have sort of the diehard BC Lion fans that have been there for many decades. I watched growing up as a kid. I remember the days of Mervyn Fernandez and many other players that I remember growing up watching on television. And today things are so different. You have fantasy leagues, you have online, you have social media, you have streaming. When you're trying to actually broadcast, which is a very old term now, I'm not even sure it's the right term, but broadcast a team, when you look at reaching fans, what screen is the biggest priority for you now?
Well, we currently, our games are broadcast on TSN, and then we also have some streaming that happens through CFL Plus, and
that's online.
That's online, yeah.
Yep.
And then we're on CBS as well in the United States, but you're seeing trends right now where. The linear, non-linear is sort of what everyone is talking as it relates to broadcast or viewing the sport. it's becoming more and more important to be able to get your content in a mobile format. So that doesn't mean that you're not on a major network like TSN. People are watching their games on their cell phone today, where before they would never do that. So that it can be various forms, but I think the key is just being accessible and having your broadcast accessible, having being accessible to your fan base, making it easy for your fans to get to games. It's a big factor. It's all about accessibility, and it's just not about the broadcast itself.
How important is having, and look, you played in BC Place for a very long time, good partners, long-term relationship.
Absolutely.
But in the perfect world, wouldn't it be great? Would it be better for the team to have its own stadium, 25, 30,000 seats, with your own boxes and revenue that you can collect? I mean, that would be, one would argue, probably the perfect fit for a team like the BC Lions?
You know, there's a bunch of models. I don't know what the perfect fit is, but you know, we're in a relationship where we're playing in a very beautiful building. It's one of the nicest buildings in the entire country. It has room for growth. You never run into any kind of weather issues. Yes. You know, there's all these benefits that you would never know it's 40-some years old because of just the constant improvements of it. So when you're in a relationship that we are with BC Place, and I agree with everything you just said about the building and our relationship, you know, we don't have all those revenue streams, if you will, as it relates to signage rights and food and beverage rights and all those things. But we also, you know, we're in a tenant relationship where we don't have all the costs around the capital and all those other things as well. So there's some back and forth. But you know, if you look at some of our other teams in the league, like Saskatchewan and Winnipeg and others, you know, they have control over their stadium, so they have the ability to brand it and do some of those things, if you will. So, but then there's other factors around it. So, you know, every situation's a little bit different, and you know, we're happy with BC Place. We like it. It's a beautiful building, and we don't have to worry about smoke.
No, you don't.
You know, we had a game last week in the league where they had to cancel it and delay it for a day because of smoke. They couldn't get the game off, and so it's becoming a more and more of a factor in today's world in the summer, where outdoor stadiums have some other factors that are putting some jeopardy in games, and those are hard situations to be in.
We would have been talking about it 10, 15 years ago.
No,
sure,
not at all.
Yeah.
Things have very much changed. So, but you know, back to your TV thing real quickly, Jazz. We just had some TV numbers come out this week, and our last game last weekend, we had a 21% increase in that 21 to 54 demo. Wow. Watching our games, and that is tremendous for that game. You know, it's just, we're working really hard. You know, the CFL used to be known as it was an older league, and the fan bases were getting older and older and older, and they weren't being replenished. That is something that we're working really, really hard on. Is we want to engage new fans, we want new families, new kids. We want everybody to really rally around the brand and the BC Lions. And when you see, talking about data, and you see those numbers come back at 21% increase at our broadcast, is a huge, huge number.
Yeah.
And so we look at that and go, okay, let's continue to work on whatever we're doing. That's helping our growth.
Yeah. How much of and we've only a minute and a half left. How much of do you view the NFL as competition in any way? You know,
I don't. And some would, but we don't. We say football is football. And if there's fans of football in this market that like, you know, the teams in the South and Seattle and wherever it might be, we're football too. And so we believe the fans are fans of the sport. And if they say, hey, I'm an NFL fan, it's our job to, you know, say, hey, why don't you come try us out? Because we're a pretty darn good sport as well.